Okay, welcome to the ninth episode of the Dead Soon podcast. The first episode where I have um, a guest virtually, and the first one that will be a video. So, very exciting new episode. And so, yeah, I mean, Lena, why don't you introduce yourself? Like, tell us who you are, and I guess like anything that you want to share, what you do for a living, just general introduction.
Sure thing. So, my name is Lina Fox. I'm Trevor's aunt. I really value that role in my life. It's pretty awesome. I'm a speech language pathologist, pediatric, but also working with a few adults. And I guess what we'll learn today, I've had quite a doozy of a medical experience. So, I'm sure we'll dive into that.
Yeah, definitely. And then just to, I guess I'll give a little clarification about why this episode is kind of came to exist. So I'm taking a psychology of sleep class, and for one of my assignments, we had to basically just choose a topic that we wanted to dive deeper into. Um, and so my original interest in this class came from Lena's sleep disorder and all the stuff that she's gone through. So I wanted to bring this forward. So I brought forward the concept to my professor. She hadn't even heard of it, which made it even more interesting. And then she suggested that I could interview you. And yeah, that's kind of how it came to exist. So then this is going to culminate with me turning this into an assignment. But yeah, and also just like being something that's very interesting and unique. But yeah, so the topic is idiopathic hypersomnia. And so I'll just read. So I did a little research beforehand. So obviously I have like a little bit of perspective on it, but obviously it's more just like from Google. But like basically Google defines it as like a rare chronic sleep disorder that causes excessive daytime sleepiness, difficulty waking up, and the idiopathic part means that the cause is unknown. And so for you, does that feel like accurate, or would you change anything or add anything about that definition?
I mean, I think from a basic perspective that encapsulates it. And just no matter, at least for me, and I think a lot of other people, sometimes it doesn't matter how much sleep you got or how good your quality of sleep was, you just feel tired all day, every day.
Okay.
So that's another layer of the joys of
Yeah,
idiopathic.
yeah. Another fun aspect of it all. Um, I would, then I'll just start with like, I guess this is probably like we discussed before and a little bit more of a complicated topic, but like, when did this start? I guess first, just when did it really become extremely present? You can start with, and then if you want to like move back from that.
Sure, yeah, I think it started as a kid. I was always a tired, cranky kid. I mean, granted, I don't remember my childhood very well, but I do remember being told that I got a little fired up at times.
Hmm.
And just like, once I think I started drinking coffee in like definitely high school. And I always drank a lot of coffee, but that was just my normal. So I always just thought that was normal, and I didn't really seek a diagnosis until 2019, when my medical situation got really complicated, and that was when we really started looking back and trying to figure out what was going on for me.
Yeah, and then so in that 2019, like what were the big symptoms that started? Like what kind of changed from like because you were already like you said used to that like base level of bad sleep or just like being very tired. So what was the change that made you think like, oh, this needs to be intervened medically, basically?
So I started having episodes of being completely unwakeable for like 14 to 36 hours in a row. The first time, actually, I think, fun fact, the first time it happened, I actually think was in December of 18, but I didn't know what it was yet. So, like, I was actually planning to go to like a Christmas event with your mom, which anyone who knows me knows I like really love Christmas.
Hmm.
And I just like could not get myself awake for it. And like, I had a sleepover with my boyfriend. He tried to wake me up, and I was just not with it. Ended up oversleeping, missing the event. But again, just thought I was tired, having an off day. But it became a red alert on a Thursday in January when I overslept work and like my job ended up calling my mom and my mom came to my apartment to wake me up and I the during these episodes I could not be woken up. Like at one point in this whole process during I called them sleep episodes because we didn't know what they were,
Hmm.
but it just these episodes of being completely unwakeable. Um, at one point, my mother had me outside in March and she was like spraying me with a cold hose,
Hmm.
and I was still sleeping. And I had been sleeping for like, I think that one was a longer one. That was like at the 14-hour mark, and nothing would wake me up. So,
And
yeah.
when that was like described back to you, was it like is it like you're like a zombie? Like are you like when she's like waking you, like was she literally dragging you not conscious, or like were you like kind of sleepwalking?
Yep, it started, so it went through phases, we'll say. So like I was in like a really deep sleep. I don't remember lots of what happened during those sleep episodes. Um, but then as time went on, like as I started waking, I would go into like this like derealization stage where I felt like I was dreaming. I felt like it was a bad dream and I felt like everyone was trying to mess with me. So I'd remember those parts, and so I'd remember like dreamlike, there would be some dancing that would happen. My family, we bought a spin bike, and they'd try to put me on the spin bike.
Hmm.
So I remember, I'd remember waking up on the spin bike. Um, but yeah, it was a process from that like deep sleep to then coming awake and realizing like, oh shoot, this is happening again. When so just the sleep episodes started really infrequent. Like it was like one in January, one in March, and then nothing until like October, and then November the following year. And so when it started, they were really infrequent. But as time went on, the episodes got more frequent. So like towards the end of my like when it came to a point was like the month of May of 2022, I think. I had 28 episodes in 31 days.
Oh
So
wow.
when they started happening so clustered and frequent, that like derealization stage was lessened, because it happened so much. I guess my brain learned like, oh, this is what's happening now.
And at the like those early ones where it was like very like spread out by the month, like did you um did you and your family go for any like did you think to go like did you check with like doctors, or was it more like okay, this is weird, this is happening, and then you would try the hose and the bike method first?
Yeah. No, so yeah, when it first started after my very first workup was with a local doctor, and he knew that it was something outside of his scope of practice. Like he knew I needed a specialist, so he told me to go to the city. He proposed that I had a condition called Klein-Levin syndrome, which is a
Hmm.
lot like what I had, but he knew that I needed a city doctor, so he referred me out. But so that doctor said, if you're sleeping so much, like he told people to let me sleep. So that was how I had those episodes initially. I had 2 weekends I totally slept through because
Hmm.
I went to sleep on a Friday and the sleep doctor said not to wake me up. So I slept for 36 hours.
Wow.
And then I
Wow.
woke up really confused.
Yeah, I'm sure the checking your phone to see the date and time was very surprising. Was it like did you wake up when you finally woke up, was it a morning?
It was
If
in
you
the
remember.
like afternoons
Okay.
each time, like late afternoon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. And so that initial when they kind of like hypothesized that it was Klein-Levin, what was like the reasoning? It was just because it was like there was some similarities with like that whole like excessive sleepiness and like
and the periods, people with Klein-Levin, I don't want to misspeak because my memory has been annihilated from this whole experience,
Mhm.
but people with Klein-Levin syndrome have these periods of just like sleeping for a long period of time. And with, I believe with that, they call it sleeping beauty syndrome. And
Hmm.
with that, they advise just letting you sleep. Um,
And is so for obviously for idiopathic hypersomnia, like there isn't a cause. I don't know. Like for Klein-Levin, is there a cause or is it not? Like
I don't think they know the cause of that one
okay.
either. So I actually went to, in this process of trying to figure out what was wrong with me, which, spoiler alert, I realized I never said what was actually wrong with me. So I have idiopathic hypersomnia, and then I also had an insulinoma, which is a tumor on the pancreas that causes it to secrete insulin, which drops your blood sugar. So the reason that I wasn't waking up is because I was in like a hypoglycemic coma, essentially.
Hmm.
My brain went into what I like to call low power mode,
Yeah.
uh, and was hibernating to try to survive the conditions. Um,
And
so
that's a very, from what you've said, like a very unique, like kind of like like a combination of two things that like the perfect storm of weird combination.
Yep. Yep. So insulinomas are infamous for showing up in different ways. So it was actually, I saw like, I think 12 specialists. I haven't done a tally, but I've seen a lot of doctors over the years. And it took a researcher, a neurology researcher, to figure out my diagnosis.
Hmm.
And it was that woman who kind of guided me through, and she led the team. I worked with doctors at Weill Cornell, and the researcher was at Weill Cornell who like really helped me out. But even the doctors at Cornell, like the endocrinologists, didn't diagnose me with an insulinoma. They didn't think that's what it was, and it was the neurology researcher who was certain, and she
Yeah.
was the one that sent me to the Mayo Clinic
Hmm.
where they
Yeah.
confirmed and treated me.
Yeah. It seems like just being so rare and also like I don't know, just such a weird combination that a lot of people maybe was it like the researcher was like would like a student kind of thing because like I would imagine like if like maybe just like having a perspective where they're like, oh, I haven't experienced this, so maybe they're thinking more outside of the box than other physicians in a way.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. Researchers are definitely, I think, better problem solvers, and they're
Hmm.
more aware of what is out there. But you know, she was just a practicing researcher who's just
Hmm.
amazing and a total godsend for me.
Yeah,
Um,
that's thank God. That's like so lucky that they were even hypothesizing that.
yeah, because there were only two other studies where people with insulinoma showed up like how I do with the sleeping.
Hmm. Yeah, so just like extremely rare because idiopathic hypersomnia is already so rare. So then that's like a even like a double rarity where it's like even crazier.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I won the lotto.
Yeah,
A rare
yeah,
condition.
really.
Mm.
Um, and then so did you notice like other health issues that were like kind of in tandem with like during this period, like other things that were being impacted by this whole everything going on?
Not not really. I mean, yeah, it was really all cognitive. I mean, because of that, I was exhausted. I had brain fog. I could not think clearly. It was obviously harder to sustain attention. And some of that has remained with the
Hmm.
residual idiopathic hypersomnia, but like from a health perspective, and mind you, all of this was happening during COVID. So I had this like mystery medical condition, and the world's, horrified about this mystery virus that we don't know how it impacts our bodies. So I really shut down with the rest of the world because I didn't want to
Hmm.
rock. My boat was already unstable, so I didn't
Yeah.
want to rock anything with COVID too.
Hmm. And then, so I guess this one, I mean, the general question that that I had relating to this part was like, how did it impact your daily life? But like, obviously, it's so much. So like, if you're focusing in on like, how did it impact your relationships with like family, friends, colleagues, which I'm sure it was so much because the cognitive things. But if you want to like add to that at all.
Yeah, sure. I realized I didn't say, so it ended up being my mom and sister who had to like wake me up. And so when I finally found a good sleep doctor. She didn't know what was wrong with me, but she knew that I had to be woken up. So every morning, my mother had to, and my sister had to like crush up Adderall in a syringe, put some water in there, and squirt it in my mouth. And I was combative. Like I was
Hmm.
violent because, again, sleep me, we called her Sleep Lena, did not want medication.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, and it took hours out of every day. So like, yeah, there was no normalcy during that time. Like because it was COVID, I was able to work remotely. You know, most of my kids are in the after school hours, my students. Um, so I was able to work and have like a shred of normalcy, and I think that was really what that was the only normal thing was being able to work and see students. Everything else was thrown off. Like I was hardly functional. Um,
Yeah, that it's I mean like you said, like obviously it's terrible, but it's at least that like you weren't working like a regular like a 9 to 5 where it was like if something was slightly off or you were like waking up a little bit later, it was at least your work was a lot of the time primarily in the afternoon.
yeah, so I got away with it. So yeah, that was my only like little bit of normalcy when things got
Yeah.
really bad.
And then like those like you talked a little bit about those like early doctor's visits, but like if you want to like talk through like the sequence, like you did like mostly, but like how it kind of started with like a regular physician, then they recommended you, and then like you can just talk through the whole line of like from that to event like misdiagnosis to diagnosis to all of that.
Sure thing. Yeah, it started with I actually saw a neurologist first. When I said what happened, I didn't have to see my primary care. I went right to a neurologist. They did, the EEG, or oh my gosh, no, whatever brainwave testing that they do. Um, they did brain imaging, found nothing, and then, referred to. I saw a neurologist and a sleep doctor right away. And yeah, it was the sleep doctor that referred out. I saw quite a few sleep doctors, like one of whom literally took out a textbook and was like, "No, I don't think you have this. I don't think you
Hmm.
have that." I was like, "Oh my gosh." It was a nightmare. Um but yeah, I saw multiple sleep doctors. I saw multiple neurologists. I saw multiple endocrinologists just because I wanted to get other opinions, to try to figure out what was wrong with me. But ultimately, like, thank God my sleep doctor enrolled me in a research study at Cornell, and that was how I got in touch with the neurologist, the neurology researcher there.
And how did being like when you're saying like being a part of research study, like what did that entail? Was it like literally like this like what I've learned in my class kind of just like about sleep studies? Like is it like kind of exactly what I'm probably thinking where like you were had to like just basically like sleep in a lab and you had like the EKG or whatever on
Mm.
and all that and they're just like getting as much data as they can.
Yeah, I totally forgot about the whole sleep study thing. Good call. Yeah, I've had two of those. Just as part of my workup, but actually for the research, they were looking at, oh my gosh, what did I do for that? It was a series of brain imaging. I forget what the study was, but they were looking at people with cognitive issues like mine.
Hmm.
Um, I wasn't a perfect match for this study, but I think my sleep doctor like snuck me in. But yeah, so for that, it was a series of images and blood work that I did for that one. And yeah, I did the sleep study thing. Just fun fact about, or I guess important fact about diagnosing idiopathic hypersomnia is they have you do an overnight sleep study. So you go
Hmm.
into the lab, you get the electrodes on your head, and they like measure your O2. I mean, and how that's how they test for a lot of sleep disorders. But for idiopathic hypersomnia, they do the overnight, but then also you do a day study, which was torture for me because like I was like living on caffeine at that point, and they said to prepare for the sleep study, you got to cut your caffeine intake in half because you're gonna have such
Hmm.
a wicked headache. Because for the day study, they want to see how you are without chemicals in your body. So that sucked. On a scale of 1 to 10, that sucked like 20 times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I had to do that twice. And so, an interesting fact about my case was that on the sleep study, it did so in normal, healthy sleeping, right? You go in and out of deep sleep for the first half of the night, and then you go in and out of REM for the second. My brain went in and out of deep sleep all night long. So that was why my sleep doctor thought this was a sleep pathology. Um, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So are you saying like you weren't even experiencing like REM sleep? It was like you were in that case it was like almost just all non-REM?
If I'm recalling correctly, which I think I am, I got the right amount of each kind of sleep. It was just the distribution was atypical. So my
Okay.
sleep doctor thought I wasn't wakeable in the morning because I was in like a deep sleep stage in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, I still think is a thing because there's times when things are going on in the house around me in the morning that like no one should sleep through, and I still
Mm-hmm.
sleep through those. So I think
Yeah.
it was just a coincidence, and I don't think that that is not a like telltale sign of idiopathic hypersomnia. I don't think. I think it was just how it showed up in me and also in my sister, who also has idiopathic hypersomnia. She could sleep through a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I'm just curious about like the REM non-REM part. Like, what about like dreaming? Did you have like different dreaming experiences during these episodes, or any dreaming, or?
No, so me in general, I almost never have dreams. I actually didn't start having dreams until the last few months. I mean, on like a regular basis. I'd have
Mm-hmm.
the occasional one, but yeah, though I guess I don't know why, but I just never had dreams that I remembered. Um, yeah.
And then, so what did it look like from like what's the timeline between like the Cornell study, and like the eventual like Mayo Clinic, like years wise, and like what did that look like, and like how does that even work, like going to the Mayo Clinic, like.
Yeah, okay, so in total, we'll say from start to fin. Okay, we'll start to finish. It took 4.5 years to get a diagnosis. And then, like, from Cornell, actually remember it was September. Um, it was September of whatever year that was. It took from September until April to get my diagnosis at the Mayo Clinic. So
Okay.
I had the researcher tell me in that September, she's like, this is it. I know this is what it is. And so then I went and did, for the insulinoma testing. This doesn't have to do with idiopathic hypersomnia, but for for that part of it, I had to do a hospitalized fast because they
Okay.
want to see what your body does under fasting conditions and do certain blood testing. Um, Worst experience of my life. I'll spare the details.
Yeah, that doesn't
Um,
sound fun.
no, it was a disaster, and it was handled terribly from an insurance perspective, a nursing perspective. But anyway, um, yeah. So that I had that happen, and the doctors at Cornell were like, "Yeah, we still don't think it's an insulinoma." Um,
Mhm.
so I had to get imaging done to see if they could find it. It didn't like, and I'm talking two or three different imaging, and none of them showed it. So it was this wild roller coaster ride, like this is what you have. It can be fixed, and then every testing that I had done was like, no, actually that's not it. It's not showing up the way you want. So I started feeling like it was this like crazy pipe dream situation. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah.
And then, so from the when you got like the diagnosis, or like when it was finally confirmed that it was like related to like an insulinoma,
Mhm.
what happened then? It was because you had to have like some surgery.
Yeah, so my friend named this tumor the ninja tumor because it hid
Mhm.
until the very And the only time it showed up, so for me to get my diagnosis, they had to do it was called a calcium stimulation test, where they catheterized my femoral artery and then injected different parts of my pancreas to see how it would respond to
Mm-hmm.
calcium. And during that study, I was in like a twilight sleep, which, if you know me, I hate needles. So, like, I had to be awake for it. But thank God they gave me a lot of drugs. But I could actually, like, see on the screen I forget what it's called, the imaging that they do to, like, guide the catheter safely. And during that study, I remembered one of the doctors, like, I saw something happen on the screen, like, the tumor blushed, they call it, because, like, it showed up in the injection because they use a contrast agent to
Mm-hmm.
show what's going on. And I remember a doctor saying, like, is that cancer? And the other doctor was like, no. Uh,
In front of you, they said that.
yeah, but I didn't remember it until after. You know what I mean? Until
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
I was given my results, then the memory came back. So that was ideal. Um yeah, so once they did that, the surgeon had COVID. So I had to fly home. We went to the Mayo Clinic in Minneapolis. So I
Mm-hmm.
flew home, scheduled the surgery, flew back out, had the surgery. Um, I was hoping to get that tumor visualized before the surgery, so they had another imaging scheduled for right before the surgery, and it didn't show up on that. So they were like, okay, we're gonna have to do a full open surgery. And they
Ooh.
had to pull my pancreas out of my body and ultrasound it. And even still, they had a hard time finding it because it was so small, and it was on like the back of the neck of my pancreas. So it was, it was on like the back side,
Yeah.
and it was the same density as the surrounding tissue. So it hit
Wow.
until the bitter end, but thank God they got it out.
Yeah, that's wow. It's just it seems like it's more and more the hitting the lottery with all this like just little stuff that's just so improbable.
Yep.
Um, what did it like following the surgery? Did life look like? Like, did you notice an immediate change, or was it like just a gradual change, and then like into even like now?
Very, very gradual change. I'm laughing because, like, I don't even want to. It's not worth going into the amount of complications I had after the surgery. Like, I had a splenic leak, I think they called it. They had to take out my spleen too. So I was in the
Wow.
hospital for 10 days instead of the
Ooh.
expected, like, 3, 4. Like, partial collapsed lung, and they thought I had diabetes because my blood sugars were high. So after all these years of it being too low, my
Mm-hmm.
sugars were high. But so it took a very long time for my body to like regain a state of homeostasis. Um, like years, honestly. Like I was saying before, my sleep, my dreams, I started having dreams a few months ago because my body's still changing. I mean, what I didn't mention, well, I guess I did. I mentioned I was taking Adderall to manage
Mm-hmm.
the sleep disorder. I tried so many stimulants during that 4.5 year window that I started having like involuntary muscle contractions at night. Like my face would like start contracting and doing creepy things. Um, so yeah, so that was a not so fun part of the journey. But to manage my idiot, so once the tumor was removed, I stayed on Adderall just to promote wakefulness and try to manage my exhaustion because I was still really tired. But after a while, I was getting feedback from a lot of people that I was really irritable, and I had a short fuse. So I kind of got some nudges to try tapering myself from Adderall, and I
Mm-hmm.
got myself off of it. I, I, by the grace of God alone, I did not do that alone. I got myself off of it in January, and I suspect maybe that is why, over time. My body's kind of recalibrating itself. I've also tapered my caffeine intake because like once I was cutting Adderall, I was drinking like 7 cups of coffee a day, and
Yeah.
like, and I don't mean little cup. This is like
Oh,
a
yeah.
cup of coffee, and I got myself now. I'm down to one of these a day, like plus maybe a tea if I need it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I found that with the Adderall, I was still exhausted. You know, like the brain fog was still there. I was still struggling. It was the only medication that helped me be more wakeful, but it wasn't worth the side effects.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I definitely in my little bit of research, I saw like there was a lot of stuff about how I mean, it's basically you're like for a lot of people it's you're treating something like a disorder that like doesn't have a treatment, so you're just trying to use other methods, and so the stimulants end up being a lot of it. Some of my research that I saw was like talking about like the role of like napping. Like, did you at all like was napping a thing for you? Like even just like your whole life, and then into like trying to help like some like daytime sleepiness, or like were you suggested to never nap? Like what was that?
Yeah, my sleep doctor said no naps because I'd had instances where I fell asleep for a nap and then I didn't wake up.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
naps were a danger zone. But yeah, before I've never been a big napper. Like I have when I'm really exhausted, but like ever since the insulinoma thing, I've maybe taken like one nap because I was super exhausted.
Mhm.
So it's not for me, but I know other people do.
Yeah. Um and then so I remember just how you would I'm not sure when this was, but how you would be like super you'd have to be basically extremely strict about when you were like sleeping and waking. Like what was that? Like when did you start really doing that, and like I'm assuming you still do that to an extent.
Oh yeah.
So what is that like, and like how much sleep is are you getting now?
Yeah, so yeah, that started as soon as I got on with my sleep doctor at Weill Cornell. She was the one that kind of laid down the law for like healthy sleep habits and the importance of me being woken up. But yeah, oh, my dog wants to eat picture. Um, what were we talking about? We were talking, yeah, I
Like the sleep cycle, like
oh,
your
yeah, consistency.
sleep wake, yeah.
It's yeah, no, maintain a very strict it really helps. I'm a big believer in sleep consistency. So yeah, I so when things are really bad, I always try to get like it sounds crazy, but like 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night was what I was
Mhm.
aiming for. Nowadays I get by with less. But I still maintain consistent sleep schedule. And I'm a big fan of like the sleep routine, you know, like so for me at 9 p.m. the lights get dimmed, all of my screens go yellow,
Mhm.
and I find that to be really helpful because a part of my sleep issue during the insulinoma days was that I would have a hard time falling asleep. So I was exhausted all day long and then all of a sudden it was like bedtime and I couldn't fall asleep.
Mhm.
So I was taking things to stay awake and then at night I was taking things to sleep. I hated it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why like for me, I just knowing my brain, I need to like I'm very light sensitive. So like a part of my condition like to this day is seasonal. So like I do better during the spring and summertime because we have longer days. And it
Mhm.
like as soon as end of August hits and we start going into September, October, November, this is the time of year when my episodes would start up more, and I get more tired. So unfortunately for me, I still have more exhaustion through the winter. Like this is not my time of year.
Mhm.
But yeah.
And then just out of curiosity, like, so we learned about like the term like sleep efficiency, like like how basically like how much sleep you're getting of like the amount of time that you say like you want to get the 9 to 10 hours those nights, but like back then, what do you think your sleep efficiency was like when it was like at its worst, and then like now, if you can remember, like are you very consistent with your sleep now, or is it still sometimes challenging?
I really don't remember from back then. But now, oh yeah. So now I I work 2 days at a school and I have to be at that school at 7:30 a.m. When I told my sleep doctor about this decision, she's like, "This is a terrible idea." But I decided to roll with it. And so like that has taken away from my consistency for sure, and I feel it. Like by the end of the day on Wednesday, I want to die. Like when I don't sleep well, I can't handle it. So I get more sleep. I get more sleep the other days. But I so even on my school days, it motivates me to get my butt in bed earlier. So I try to be sleeping by 11. Doesn't always work out that way, but I try to be sleeping by 11 so that when I get up at 5:45, oh,
Yeah.
it's not killer. But otherwise, yeah, I really prioritize sleep. I try to schedule things later in the day so I could sleep from like midnight to like 9
Mm-hmm.
and when I can.
Because I mean, I'm assuming just off of that, you definitely like even like your whole life have probably felt more of like a night owl than a
Yep.
morning person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Always. Always. And
Hmm.
that's been a hard shift with the school thing because
Yeah.
I couldn't like yeah, I would prefer to go to sleep at like 1:30, but I just can't. I've had to change that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talked about in our class a lot about how just how like work and like society is like it's definitely like morning people are at a major advantage,
Hmm.
um, and it's much harder, especially like for like students. Like when you're a teenager, you need more sleep, and then you're getting up at 6 o'clock to get on the bus by 6:30, and then it's like it's
Yeah,
just bad. Like it just ends up being so bad.
for sure.
Uh, and then uh, this is kind of like a big picture that we a little discussed a little bit beforehand, but like what like misconceptions about IH or like just sleep disorders in general do you wish like more people could understand, like just anything from, obviously because it's such a rare thing that you are among the very few people who have experienced it, so anything that you have
Yeah.
to say about that.
Yeah. I've been really blessed that the people in my life are understanding. We get it. Again, both me and my sister have it. So it's not a novelty in our family. I'm just randomly thinking of like I'm in the Idiopathic Hypersomnia support group on Facebook, and I've seen stories of people, being shamed for it, like being called lazy and
Hmm.
unmotivated. So I guess that would be a nice thing for more people to be aware that it is actually a medical condition. And my big pedestal is wanting doctors to actually know how to diagnose and treat accordingly. Like I had a doctor who was so sure of his diagnosis of Klein-Levin syndrome, he wanted to put me on lithium. I was like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I think I'll
Hmm.
just see another doctor. Um, and I think I wish my sleep doctor at Cornell actually is said she was going to reach out to the Idiopathic Hypersomnia Foundation to advocate for having blood sugar testing be a part of like that diagnostic process, because she was devastated that she didn't check my blood work sooner. So I guess I would love for sleep doctors to learn more about this, because I do think there's more to it. She had another patient. Yeah, obviously, she didn't share any confidential information, but she said she had another patient whose sleep was impacted by their blood sugar. So I think it would be helpful for whoever that would benefit, for it to be a
Hmm.
part of the diagnostic process.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great idea, and it's like I'd learned in my class. I don't know the exact like statistic, but it's like the idea that like basically just general physicians aren't trained enough on sleep, and it is like a pillar of our life. Like it's so important, but like it seems like it's very like underemphasized, and even just like the fact that so many doctors are like end up sleep deprived is an issue in itself. Like so many people are sleep deprived, and then they're diagnosing people on just like anything, and like they're operating from being sleep deprived. Like residents are getting such little sleep a lot of the time. Like it's such a scary concept that like the like people that we're putting our hands into, like we're trusted them with, like are kind of forced to be operating at not their peak level. Like
Yeah.
it's a scary idea.
Yeah.
And then I mean, I guess you kind of went into this a little bit, like if you were like giving advice to someone who like just got diagnosed with this or is just going through a sleep disorder challenge, like what would your advice be in like dealing with doctors that might not be super informed, and then just like what anything that you think would help them?
Oh, man. I would start by listening because I'm sure they have so much. It is such a difficult ride. And I mean, I'd refer to my sleep doctor, Anna Krieger at Weill Cornell. She was amazing. She like really listened and heard me and cared, like truly cared about my case. And I'd encourage them to just, I mean, to find a doctor who truly cares, which I know is hard in this day and age. And really, I mean, it's so easy to offer fixes, like for me a consistent sleep schedule, like making sleep my priority is key, but granted, like I'm able to do that. I know
Hmm.
not everyone has that luxury. So I I'd feel bad throwing solutions at them, but for me that would be the advice if possible. Um
Yeah, like prioritizing sleep obviously as much as you can. Like obviously it's like I'm just imagining like people who are like working like construction where they're on like a 7 to 3 like kind of like job. It's like that becomes so much more challenging, especially like if you're commuting. Like if my dad had been dealing with that with like his insane like work schedule that he always had, like it would have been like catastrophic. Like it would have been like unsolvable. It would have been
yeah.
like that's the part that's very scary, that it's like if you're not in the right situation, then it becomes even more challenging than it already is.
Yeah, no, 1000%. So that's where I feel profoundly blessed that I've kind of been able to make it work with my lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess then I'll move into just like big picture. Like this is obviously a a question that could maybe not mean anything, but like how did going through all this like change your whole life and like your perspective on life and like everything? Like I know that's a very general question, and it's like, but I know it's something that like so little people have experienced. So it's just like having your perspective on how much this impacted your life and like what changed.
Yeah. Oh man. Huge, huge life changer for me. I mean, just from the appreciation of the basics, like having my health, being able to wake up in the morning. Through this journey, there so many things were robbed from me during that time that I just have such gratitude for the basics. Obviously, life goes on and we have our moments where we forget and we take it for granted. But I'm thankful I have that like anchor point to like circle back to and try to ground myself when life is getting stressful. Without a doubt, the biggest outcome of this whole condition in my life was actually that I got to know God better through it. And for that reason alone, I know it sounds crazy, but for that alone, I would do it all over again because the way it worked out when the episodes started getting more frequent, I had to move back home, which was hard. No one wants to move back home, but
Hmm.
that ended up working out for me from the perspective of being able to tackle my student loan debt better. And also, I started going to church with my mom. I mean, it wasn't until like I didn't just like get home and start going, but like when
Hmm.
the world shut down and church was on TV, it was a lot more accessible. So, starting going to church and learning more about that stirred up a lot of questions for me. And I was very fortunate to have a pastor who, like, I had a lot of questions because I was, like, really struggling with it. There was a
Hmm.
lot that I could not wrap my head around, and I had a lot of opposition to it. And so I had a really great pastor who was willing to meet with me and answer my bazillion questions. And honestly, it took me 2 years to like wrestle with. I called it the Jesus thing because I was like, I don't know,
Hmm.
I just can't. It's hard to believe. I like fully, I know because I was there. And actually, like through when I talk about like I did so many appointments, and all of this is in the city. I live in Somers, so it was like an hour and a half train ride plus, plus like
Hmm.
transport to get to the doctor appointments in the city. So during those train rides, I would be like reading this Case for Christ book. And that was the only time I would read because like I was so shot, but I had to do something to like keep myself engaged and awake.
Hmm.
And so it's mind blowing looking back. Like wow. So through those train rides, I actually got to like wrestle with the things that I was struggling with. So that alone was really huge. So just, building that relationship with God. I know that like the whole religion thing is a whole other discussion, but uh, the way that I've gotten to know him, Jesus just wants like relationships with us. So through
Hmm.
that period, that was devastating. Like I was super depressed. Transparently, like in that period of like I don't know, at least a year and a half. I really just wanted to be dead every day. I was like, I don't want to do this. I have no will to
Hmm.
live. Just like, please. But, I accepted Christ in my life and I was like, all right, Lord, apparently you want me to be alive for whatever reason. This
Hmm.
like totally sucks. Your will be done. But it sucks. Um, I was not, you know what I mean? I, I did, it was not like sunshine and rainbows from the start.
Yeah.
But it gave me something to hold on to. And I've learned a lot. So I'm very thankful. That's probably the biggest outcome of that chapter of time for me is having that, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, and that's such like a case where it's like um even just you saying that you would go through it all over again is like just so powerful for you to say. Like that's it is because you're saying how challenging it was, but like getting to the other side and like seeing that your life is now so much better is just awesome. Like it's great. It's awesome hearing. Um yeah, I mean that's such a profound spot. That I like now like the next question that I ask feels like it's not as like crazy. But maybe this one should have been before this question. Um, but I was gonna say, like if you could give like three like sleep tips, like just like general. But I know you covered a little bit, so like you can just obviously touch back on like the ones that you've spoken on. But like to give to anyone, like the everyday person, what would they be?
So I mean, for me, it's the blue light makes a really big difference. So they kind of all have to do with that. Just like dimming lights at night is a major one. Changing like tech now makes it so easy. It's so
Hmm.
easy to just take the blue light out. Like I know it's annoying, but like let your screen be yellow and deal with it. Um, and also, I really like, I don't have them here. The like crimson blue light blocking glasses. They're funny looking, but
Hmm.
they're really great. So I do recommend those if and you can do any combination of those things. I know I'm intense when I do something and it makes a difference. I'm all in. Um, and just like prioritizing consistent sleep schedule is
Hmm.
huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all awesome. It's been even just like taking this course, it's been so nice to see like all these little things that can. What's I mean, some of the stuff is a little scary where it's like seeing how much sleep impacts everything, but also like seeing that like there are things that are in our control that we can do that just like basically just prioritizing sleep and prioritizing good sleep is so important.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm glad. I'm glad you're learning now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if you've read the book. I mean, the book that we're focusing on is like Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Um, but I mean, it's been awesome and it's been a great like textbook because it's like not a textbook. It's more just like a book for anyone. And it's been awesome just to see he goes really like in depth, but it's also like digestible and like it's not a textbook. Like textbooks can be so like repellent because they're not fun to read and it's very like just not good terminology.
Sure. Oh, cool. I'll have to check it.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate you taking the time out and doing this, and I think this will be awesome. I'll definitely send you the final product of my paper, and I'll have to make a presentation and do all that. But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out and helping me and hopefully other people learn more about just idiopathic hypersomnia and everything around it.
Yeah, no problem. I look forward to seeing what you come out with.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think when I click stop recording, it's gonna kick you out. But I will see you on
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
And have a nice day, and hopefully work. I don't know. Yeah,
It'll be good.
yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
Catch you
Bye
later.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you.